I'm not particularly kind of into this idea of regrets. And I give you an example. So we have, say, friends, and every year before the new year starts, we get together. We'll say, okay, this is what we want to do next year. Are there any regrets, right? So for me, it has been always consistent. I don't write any regrets. Yeah. Not because there aren't things that I don't want to see them differently, but I tend to kind of put all I can into them. And if that is the situation, then if I don't get what I want, then there is nothing to regret about, right? So I've tried and that's it, yeah.
Welcome to Business as Unusual, where we go beyond balance sheets to uncover the human side of business and entrepreneurship. I'm your host, Tayfun, and in this very first episode, I'm joined by my dear friend Anyu from Cambridge University. Business as Unusual isn't your typical business podcast. We are not here to trade buzzwords or talk about growth metrics. Instead, we will dive right into the stories, the human layers, and unexpected perspectives that shape entrepreneurs beyond the boardroom. So let's jump in and kick off Business as Unusual the way it's meant to be, with stories worth remembering. Where did you grow up? How did growing up shape you?
So I grew up in the northeast of China, and I grew up from a family of it's a mixed cultural background. So my mom is Korean, and my father is Chinese, and I think that actually influenced me quite a lot. So from a very, very young age, I was naturally into having multiple sets of cultural traditions and habits, different sets of languages. To an extent, I think that probably was a deciding reason why I decided to come out of China, come to the UK. And after that, I really found kind of my additional inspiration because the UK is famous for being where people from all over the world coming together, right? So I think because of my background and where I ended up later on, that has influenced me as a person. Please, yeah, come
And any interesting stories about your first internship or your first job as a professional career?
So my first job, which I actually got paid for, was when I was in high school, and I think this also links to where I shared earlier about my interest in different cultures and backgrounds. We had a professor from the United States visiting our town, right? Not a very big place, and they were looking for somebody who can act as a interpreter or a translator, and because I was in that circle known for somebody who is really interested in English and can speak some, I actually became a translator for the meeting between the professor and the vice mayor of the town itself. So that was my kind of, if you like, the first job I had. Sure. And through the interaction with that professor from America, not only obviously with the translating and the interpreting, I also got to learn about American culture, right? So he gave me a baseball as a souvenir, and he talked to me about how different sports and how children live their lives in the States. So I think that's how much has that influenced me, how much impact. Probably need to think about that further, but this is definitely my first job, and it's linked to what I'm doing now in a very multicultural, multinational setting on my business, and also on the work I do with the business school. Yeah.
Okay. How did you arrive where you work today? So how did you become who you are today?
Good question. I think a famous philosopher once said, I don't know, I can't quote the person now, all we're doing in our life is trying to know ourselves, right? So I don't know where I am today. I know where I am now physically, right, with your good self. But how I started to do what I'm doing now really traces back to a number of things. One is before this time last year almost, I had been a good corporate citizen for 16, 17 years, right? So I worked in financial services, technology, life sciences, a number of industries in London for major corporations. And I think I learned a tremendous amount in those experiences, not only about how to work with people, again, back to the point of working with people from different countries and backgrounds, but also the ability, I think, to solve problems, right? To solve business problems, to solve technology problems, people problems, etc. And then from 2022, this is how we got to know each other. We all got enrolled into the executive MBA program at Cambridge University, and that has been a big revealing period for me, not only through our class, but also the people that we got to know afterwards, the alumni, the faculty, the people in the network, in the ecosystem. I found out that actually there is a lot more to potentially what life has to offer than maybe the corporate jobs. I'm very grateful of the jobs I did. And as I said, they really are making me who I am today. But pretty much as we were doing the MBA, I started to think about what is it that I wanted to do next. Yeah. So what I'm doing now, as you know, I have probably feel like two roles. One is I'm a fellow with Cambridge University Judge Business School. So in that capacity, I'm a lecturer, teacher, facilitator, designer, etc. for what we call executive education programs and entrepreneurial education programs. And my specialty is on strategy, on innovation, execution, leadership. I think the linkage or the credibility that I have with this, not only with the MBA, these are the areas that I started to really be responsible for in my corporate jobs, right? And because of that, and also because of my research background, I do have a PhD as well in the technology area. I was able to bring all these elements together to become a fellow and to be able to hopefully adding value to different people, different organizations. And so outside of that, I'm also an advisor / consultant, I guess linked to the educational work that I do, but more focused on business problems that are faced by companies, organizations, etc. Right. So in that capacity, I advise technology companies, life sciences companies, and healthcare providers, right, hospitals, both in Asia and here in the UK as well. Also on items like strategy, innovation, what does AI mean, what are the opportunities, etc. for them. But this is more from a, if you like, more closer to advisory as well as consulting based.
So going back to our MBA studies, and
yes.
Any regrets doing MBA, and how did MBA change you? Professionally or personally,
yes.
personal level.
yes.
So can you notice things are different than before?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I think it's interesting you mentioned that, because I'm not particularly kind of into this idea of regrets, etc. And I give you an example. So we have, say, friends, and every year before the new year starts, we get together and we'll say, okay, this is what we want to do next year. Are there any regrets, right? So for me, it has been always consistent. I don't write any regrets. Not because there aren't things that I don't want to see them differently, but I tend to kind of put all I can into them. And if that is the situation, then if I don't get what I want, then there is nothing to regret about, right? So I've tried and that's it. Yeah. So, but I think back to your question about the MBA, if I had done this a few years earlier, probably it would have given me a little bit more flexibility and possibility. But then again, so my MBA is funded by by the company I worked for, right? So that kind of opportunity does not really rely on me on when I want to do it. Yeah. So am I regretting that? No. But if in an ideal world, if I had done it earlier, then I would have probably more possibility, at least a few more years to perform what I want to perform. Yeah.
Okay. Any advice to young people in terms of business or their career?
For young people, Yes, I would say when we were young, we can take generally more risks, right? And there are we have a larger threshold to learn from these mistakes and to adjust, right? So I think for me, for young people, is to find opportunities to see to identify what you don't know, and then try things that you have a hunch or instinct on, right? But don't be too persistent, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, you can't change every day of what you're doing, but be very agile and adaptive, so that you are ready to move on and pivot on to something else. Yeah.
And also, some people are more money oriented, so they often ask me, for example,
Yeah.
"Oh, is there money on this particular like job in the future, or in 5 years' time, or in 10 years' time, whether it might be software development or AI or technology?"
Okay.
But then, yeah, I mean, is it the right kind of motivation, or would they do something that they're more passionate about,
Okay.
regardless of
Okay.
the job?
Okay. So I think I've been in managerial leadership roles long enough to kind of believe in this fact, which is whatever people are motivated in, we don't judge. we help them in terms of getting what they want, right? So I don't perhaps have a definition of what is the right motivation, what is not the right motivation. But if money is a motivation, probably one thing that I can share from what my experience is and others as well is sometimes to focus on value that you're creating can make money come more naturally and in bigger amounts than just focusing on money, right? So, but obviously that's just my personal view. I've certainly heard stories otherwise, but this is what I believe in. And then actually the work that I've been doing now as an executive educator, as an advisor and consultant, at the beginning, due to various reasons, right, I was more I guess in a way focused in making sure that I'm the rate that I ask, what I get is more in line with what I expect. But later on, I found out that actually having a conversation to understand the challenges and problems, and actually offer some perhaps even free tips and advice, is more likely to actually land onto something later on. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But what about say if you want to run your own business as a consultant or as an entrepreneur?
Yeah.
Do you think the academic side of things would help you in terms of like developing your business or scaling your business, or not really? I mean, because it's a big commitment, like MBA, for example, 2 years. And they could focus on like growing their business instead of like studying, and but maybe in the long term, so that would accelerate things. So what's your view on this in terms of
So I think MBA is really a personal choice, yeah, and everybody's personal circumstances are so different. It's actually this has been a question that it has been in my mind, and many people ask this, especially those who want to study MBA, right? So it's a personal choice. It needs to be made along a number of practical and long-term factors you're considering, right? So, for example, where you want, what's important to you in life, as you said, this 2-year investment. Is your family supporting you both in terms of time and maybe even financially? What you are trying to get out from the experience. This is very important because 2 years is a long time in our life, especially for people on the MBA average age 40. How many 2 years are there in our lives? So the experience is as important as the outcome of that experience. That's for sure. But I think, as I said, I think it's a completely personal choice. It needs to be then balanced. But if you ask me, what is it that has kind of influenced me? I mentioned a few points already about kind of open up my perspective, giving me new things to consider, to look at, to know what's out there, more so than what I was able to see.
And I think it's a bit of a journey, right? So you don't instantly realize the benefits like overnight.
No.
So it's just the long term kind of thing, and then you can see the benefits on personal level and as well as professional level over time.
Yeah, and certainly it's it's a discovery process.
Yeah,
I certainly will say that. So you have some idea when you started, like a lot of things which are kind of multi-year, right?
Yeah, but it's definitely not easy, right? So I would say, because we had like a lot of struggles in terms of
You
time
mean?
management.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's
I would.
very difficult.
I think you're absolutely right. I would even go further to say, you have to find the reasons. You have to make sure that the reasons not to do it is fully understood. Yeah, there are many reasons not to do it, but then there are also lots of benefits if it's the right fit to do it. Yeah.
Okay. Any side hustles or like hobbies that you'd like to share or you like doing that people don't know about you? I mean, I certainly don't know about that side of you, for sure.
Side hustles, yeah, and maybe some curiosities and hobbies, right? So one thing, a couple of things came to mind. Number one is to build on what I said earlier about this interest in different cultures, etc. So I've been learning Spanish language for quite some time, about 5 to 6 years now. Yeah. In a quite committed fashion. So I have my Spanish teacher from Tenerife. Every week now, every other week, I try to keep it up with him. And if I have the choice to go on holidays, obviously I can't go to Spain all the time, but I try to go there and then practice my Spanish. So I was happy last time I was there, I didn't need to speak English. I was able to not only order my food, but actually talk to the local people, etc. So language learning is a big thing for me. Spanish is the current affair. I've tried my hands on French, on Japanese, Italian.
But do you still think learning another language is still relevant in 2025 or beyond? Because nowadays, like you must have seen all the technology with AirPods and glasses and everything. So
and they're so cheap. I was in Shenzhen, so the tech center, right? And the amount of all these technologies and kind of £10 you get a pair, it's amazing. But I would always say that we need to ask out these questions. Is language only about translating? That's number one, right? For me, translating a language is the easy stuff, right? Language is the vehicle through which you actually get to know people and build personal relationships. And a lot of the time, if you just do literal translation, lots of the meanings are gone, right? So for me, the reason why I learn language is so that I can actually build a good rapport with the people and actually help me to understand the culture, the history of the place. That's what I'm interested in.
Okay. Yeah. What excites you the most in the upcoming years, like next year or the following year? So what's coming for Anyu?
Okay. I think there is the element of the uncertainty, which is exciting. But for me, a few things came to mind. So my children are growing up. So I have two boys. Both are in secondary school. So I'm starting to really think a lot about our design, our life a lot around. For those two young people, what is it that I can maybe expand their thinking and network, right? And I think the work I do now, in a way, gives me the ability to do that, right? So I go and teach and advise, consult overseas many times. And once I finish the work, I'm able to take some time out. So if I can coincide that with their schedule, they're able to do that. So they went to Hong Kong with me for the first time, really enjoyed that. And Shenzhen as well early this year. And hopefully we're going to go somewhere else later in the year as well, right? So United States in this case. So I think for me is really to look at what they do and actually combine what I do with them so that I don't regret later on to say, oh, I didn't have time to actually give them, obviously not only the substance, but also the subsistence. Yeah. So that's for me from a personal level, but from a kind of a career and business level, as I mentioned earlier, now I need to find a way to scale what I do. Okay. Yeah. There are a few very exciting ideas that I'm trying to figure out. Hopefully towards the end of the year, I will be able to share that.
Should all the businesses be scalable? Or can you think of business ideas?
Yeah.
And it shouldn't scale. And is it really important? I mean, what do you think about it?
So maybe scaling is a word that's been used in different ways, right? And people have different understanding to the word scaling. So for me, it's more about how do I not become a bottleneck of what I do, right? So if I'm an educator, if I'm a consultant, if I'm only myself, I can only do this number of hours, right? And also I'm not able to actually spread what I believe is helpful for people, right? So for me, it's more from that angle as opposed to I want this to scale 10 times and 100 times, etc. So maybe growing is a better word. Maybe development is a better word, and that's what I meant by scaling. Rather, so I don't want to be the bottlenecker for that too. Yeah.
And can we talk about innovation a little bit? Because you are a specialist and you are an innovation guru in a way, academically as well.
Yeah.
So you have frameworks and you are applying these frameworks into companies.
Yeah.
And so can innovation be repeatable? I mean, we have some examples like Apple, and then they innovated many years and then it stopped, and now they're struggling. So can this be repeatable in businesses?
It's established fact, right? For companies which are mature, right? It is actually difficult to actually innovate, right? In the strict sense, and it's because they already have a lot of times an ongoing business that's generating quite good revenue. So the urgency from that perspective is low, right? And also as organizations become bigger, there is more challenges in terms of coordinating between teams, and obviously the uncertainty of if you innovate something, that's a risk for your company. So all of that actually come in that sense. But I think there are a number of things which are useful to note, right? So number one, what we found is that does your company has, I'm not going to even say culture, right? Because I think culture is the outcome as opposed to what you're chasing. Yeah. So does your company have the right mechanisms and incentive structures, not only financially, right, for people to actually wanting to participate in the innovating process? So what I mean by that is a lot of the companies, established ones, they operate in a way where there's a lot of KPIs. But KPI for me is to measure what you already have, your operations. When you are building something new, there is no KPI to manage it. Yeah, to actually or to measure it, to make it even more challenging. Companies, as they grow bigger, they want to have standard procedures. They want to have standard processes, which means they want to have the same set of inputs, same process, and same outputs. And that's completely against what innovation is, right? Innovation, you want to change the inputs, change the process, change the whole thing, right?
So, is that the reason why is it difficult to innovate in larger corporations than?
It's a major reason, right? So going back to what I said earlier about the red mechanism, red incentive, if you just let the organization to continue to innovate and you just keep talking about innovation, the organizational power is going to just eat these people out, right? There's no way they can do it. So you need to apply additional support, additional pressure, and additional incentives for that to happen, so that when people are doing things which are different, even if they fail, right, they are the fact that they're trying is being incentivized, as opposed to, okay, so you've now made a difference between what we're asking in our standard procedure or the output of the standard procedure, that you're going to be penalized even, right? So I think for me, there are many things, obviously, and many schools of thoughts, but for me, I would always look at this first. If you want innovation, is your team actually incentivized? Do they know what the mechanism is for the ideas to initially come out?
And what was the biggest blocker to innovation, if you have to pick one in companies? What blocks it? Is it the culture? Is it something else?
I guess it depends on at what stage we're looking at this, right? So if you have lots of ideas, then it's about, okay, what is the mechanism and the process for them to be surfaced? So maybe you have lots of good ideas, but they're not surfacing, right? Then I would look at what's your mechanism. If you don't really have these ideas, maybe it's a lack of urgency, as we mentioned, right? So
and how does your framework kind of address this or overcome this challenge?
So there are, maybe this is another lecture separately, but very quickly. So there is a number of framework. One is to actually assess the current status of how you're managing innovation, right? So look at process, which has a problem, and then we're able to actually offer something. But the other one for big corporations is really, really important, which is you can imagine different levels in terms of your strategic objective, your strategy, and your innovation work, right? Because of reasons of uncertainty, a large corporation, different departments, and kind of time into the future, right? You can't really predict. We see lots of disconnects between your objectives, what you're trying to achieve, your strategy, how you're trying to achieve it, and the innovation you're doing to be able to achieve that strategy. So another framework is really to look at that, to actually find out where is it that you have that disconnect, and then to be able to then, from that point on, to then say, okay, these are the right type of innovation that you'd be looking for. Yeah.
And should every company be innovative? What do you think? I mean, can you survive without innovation, or is it only applicable to certain type of businesses?
So to answer that question, we need to answer the question of what is innovation first. Yeah. And I think innovation for me is, if it meets 3 criteria, it is innovation. Number 1 is it has an element of something that is new. Number 2 is it has to be implemented. You can't just say my innovation is an idea, right? People come up with hundreds of ideas every day. You're not going to implement all of them, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then don't execute it, then
exactly. So it has to be executed, but then also importantly, it has to generate value. So the execution has to generate value. So for all of that to happen, for all of that to be in place, then you have some innovation, right? So if you use that as the definition, something new, even if you have implemented it, you need to implement and you need to test the value, then it can capture a very broad kind of variety of things, right? So it can be product innovation, can be incremental, can be new products, can be tech innovation, business model, process innovation, all of that is done. It's hard to actually imagine a company who won't change anything in what they're doing because of external factors, because of internal struggles, weaknesses, whatsoever, right? So I think I would say, maybe hypothetically, I can't imagine a company who won't innovate, but it depends on how we define innovation. Yeah.
Okay. Is there any kind of stories that you walk into a company, for example, and then you found out like that they are doing things very inefficiently?
Doing things inefficiently. Yeah. Always. Yeah. Always. Yeah. And I don't say this because I'm judgmental, right? Operating in a company is all about different trade-offs, right? We're not there to fix all sorts of problems, right? But the angle I look at is, as I mentioned, 2 things. One is, if we subscribe to the idea that you need to be innovative, you need to make changes, then what is your process of first sourcing these ideas, evaluating these ideas, and executing them and measuring them, right? So that is always one thing. Yeah. If the company or the organization has the desire to do that, that's already a good thing. Yeah. Okay. And then the second thing, as I mentioned, is actually the next framework, which is how do you then make sure that you have the alignment between your goals, your strategy, and your innovation to be able to do, right? And there's a third part, which is how do you become effective in execution? And that's way beyond project management. There's more than that, right? So these are the 3, right? So they can come and knock on my door virtually and they say, oh, I have a problem with my strategy, I have a problem with my innovation, I have a problem with my execution. We'll be able to actually give them something.
Do companies admit that? I think that could be one of the biggest challenge. Because when you go and talk to executives or senior managers, they don't always admit, like, we need some help with strategy, or we need some help with innovation. I mean, obviously it depends on their personality experience, but I think you could easily get pushback, and they might even get offended. Like, when you're trying to teach them, like, their job.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's a little bit like an analogy. Like, if you're a doctor, you go to somebody and they say you have a disease. This is your pill, right? It doesn't work well. So what I found is that, as I mentioned earlier, I'm not trying to in every conversation trying to sell you something, right? I'm just interested in having a conversation, right? And I think that typically will bring down the guard, right? I want to understand. Obviously, I have my credibility of being a fellow, being an advisor, this and that, right? So hopefully that's sufficient to have a half an hour conversation, right? If the desire is not there to have that conversation, then that's probably not the right time, right? And there are other I guess, other potential opportunities to explore. But on the point of how do people admit mistakes, right? It's human nature. We don't like to admit mistakes. So I don't look at it from that way. It's more from the angle of what are the things that are worrying, right? What are the things that are worrying? It's difficult to imagine an organization that doesn't have a problem, right? And that problem can come from like strategy, innovation, execution, etc. So it's in a way to actually tease these out from an open dialogue as opposed to, oh, you have this, you have that. And does that work all the time in terms of landing onto something? No, but as I said, if my objective is not to actually have a conversation and then land onto something, it doesn't really cause a big problem.
Yeah, and who drives that change usually? Is it the CEO all the time, or is it like chief strategy officers or chief operation officer, or some other, like, that, does it often come from the bottom? It could come from the bottom, right? Like, saying to the senior management, hey guys, we have these issues, or we need to innovate, or we need to change this. Is it more like bottom up, or it comes from the top?
So it varies, but what is necessary is for the CEO or the chief executive or a board of director to actually support this actively. So they have to have the desire and willingness to do something. Otherwise, it will never happen. So that's number one. But does it have to go through them? That's not necessary to actually always go through them.
Any unforgettable stories or events happened in your professional career? Any stories that you like to share?
So one of the conversations that I had with my mentor when I first started working, this was with Thomson Reuters, right, the financial services company. I remember, so I was in Singapore with them. This is a quite senior guy, and then I was reporting to him. What I quickly realized is that he is on the phone all the time, right? He's very good at actually talking with people, extremely good at, And actually, I actually believe, I don't actually know if there is something that he cannot talk people into, right? So that kind of powerful people. So I had a coffee with him, and I was just reflecting on my own kind of capability and experience. And I asked him, do you enjoy talking to people? And he said, no, I don't. I'm a complete introvert. I do not want to talk to people. Okay. And then he said, but I know to actually get things done, I have to talk to people. I'm extremely logical and committed to do that. Wow. And then he said, and I was then saying to myself, look, right, this is a true example of, if you really believe something can be learned, you will get on to learn it, right? Okay. And that was, at an early stage of my career, was very powerful, because I then started to, obviously not doing everything that I think I want to try, but actually gives me the confidence that a lot of things can be learned, contrary to maybe the other thinking of fixed mindset to say, okay, you are just who you are.
And having lived in many countries, in the past, and how would you compare, like, for example, living in China versus living in the UK, or are there any other places you lived?
Singapore, United States.
And United States.
Yes.
And how would you compare, and why? I mean, we don't need to go into detailed things, but like, is there any kind of highlights in each countries that you'd like to share with us?
I would say they are very different, and it is worth experiencing them to be able to really at least understand what's out there, and then you can decide what you do or not do. I mean, we talk from experience. When before we finished our MBA, you came to China in an organized trip with us, and you told me that it was very revealing for you. Yes. It is. So for me, it's quite a personal one. So I'm born and raised in China, right? So when I first came to the UK in 2000, when you talk about China is like, okay, that's number 7 in the GDP and all of that, right? And after I stayed in the UK 15, 20 years, China became number 2 GDP and all of that. And every year I go back, I see huge changes. Huge changes that beyond what I can catch up.
Is it even visible, like every year you go back?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, every year. And actually, sometimes I go back twice a year. I can see something different, right? Some new building come up, a new company come up, a new app on the phone. So So I think the pace of change, and the desire and willingness to change, certainly for example, in this case, in China, is probably not well felt or known in here. Yeah. So I think it's worthwhile for business people to actually see a different way of getting things. I'm not saying that's the perfect way, right? Not at all, but it's to be able to actually experience that and then make your own decision. On the other hand, I lived both of my adult life in the UK, and so I studied and worked here. I had my family here, my children here. So big part of me is very familiar to the life in here as well, right? So for me, it's actually experiencing these as opposed to, okay, this is better, that is better. Maybe it is for some people, but that's also a personal choice, I think.
If I'm a business, what's the next step? So how do I engage you? How do I contact you? And what's the process?
Yeah.
So can you tell us a bit more about it?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So I think because I have these two roles, right? One as educator, one as an independent consultant. Depending on what you need, the best way is to connect me on LinkedIn. And then depending whether that's a business education, then I will talk to the business school if that's relevant. If otherwise it's a consulting advisory project, then I will take that on.
By the way, we'll put all the links below. If you like to follow Anyu, you can do so.
Thank you. Much appreciated. First one done. Thank you. Yeah. Thanks, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, enjoyed that.